Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with these nerds.
I'm Ted.
Nerdarchy Ryan.
And today we're going to do another What Does Your Class Say About You? And we'll be talking about the Ranger.
Be sure to check out the Nerdarchy, the newsletter, where you can get gaming tips and also learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So with that, today we want to talk about the Ranger and what kind of character, or not person, but what kind of, not character, but person would actually become a Ranger. Like take up that profession,
Spending so much alone time and this and that, kind of maybe being curmudgeonly towards society and wanting to not be very engaged with it, possibly.
The Ranger is the person who sits on the fringe. They go back and forth, spending time in the wilds, in nature, as well as, in the actual town itself.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to be the prototypical, Strider, aka Aragorn version. I could see a Ranger being, a huntsman who's, maybe has a noble background. Mm-hmm. And he just, enjoys the thrill of the hunt and is very well accustomed. He goes on hunting trips. So, this Ranger is not very rangery. He goes out with, there's tents and stuff like that, and he's got, servants. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, he has the tent palace that gets set up.
Yeah. It's he travels with a camp, of people.
Or if you do the night version and you have your 3 squires, so this way you really do have people to set up those tents for you.
Yeah, you want people to do the crap work. You need your Nodwick from time to time as well.
So, but traditionally the Ranger has always been portrayed as that individual that goes between civilization and the wilderness.
He's the survivalist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the consummate survivalist where, the druid and the barbarian, they might just they just prefer to be in nature and they kind of stay there. With the Ranger,
he's intermittent between.
Yeah, for some reason they've always been portrayed that way, and like you said, they don't have to be. You could really break the mold with it and go completely off the rails and go, okay, I'm going to be a noble Ranger, and he just likes spending all of his time outside, but he brings those creature comforts with him.
Here's the thing. I like to think of classes almost as just this is my character's skill set. These are the things they're good at. It doesn't mean I have to play anything I've ever seen that version of the thing happen. So we could have that noble Ranger. We could also do a thing who's a bounty hunter, a guy that goes out and brings people to justice, maybe you dip in the paladin or something like that, something cool. But where you're basically getting people that have done wrong, and this lawful good person that goes into civilization and finds the people that have committed crime.
I think one of the important things to consider too is the fact that the Ranger it's one of the warrior classes, but it is the most skill-oriented of the warrior classes. Granted, there's not a whole lot of skill sets in 5th edition, but they do get more skills than any of the other warriors.
Yeah, it's if you want to feel a little roguey and a little druidy with some fighters splashed in too, Ranger hits all your points.
It's a fighter that's got druid and rogue mixed in.
Yeah,
because they get some of the sneaky stuff or access to, and they get the nature spells. So.
Right, absolutely.
So so they're a warrior that's kind of rooted in different traditions, and me and Ted had talked about too, you could even, instead of playing the loner, you could actually play the Ranger that belongs to some kind of fellowship or organization.
Of a ring, perhaps, maybe.
Perhaps, but we're thinking more maybe druids and other Rangers that have a purpose, whether it's...
Or they could be part of the Nag.
Well, they could be part of the Nag, absolutely.
Yeah, the Nag needs Rangers, just saying. Yeah.
Everybody needs a Ranger. if you're going into the wilds, you need a Ranger. But
and holy hell, if you're playing Steve Lumpkin's the West Marches on roleplay, do you need a Ranger? It's a hex crawl wilderness thing where everything could fucking kill you. It's so bad. It's so terrible.
The poison ivy is really poison.
Yeah, it's so poison ivy. Yeah.
But we were thinking along the lines of this group of basically wild men and women that maybe they have some kind of purpose. Like the gatekeepers in Eberron, where they fight aberrations, or it could be something different. It could be more. They could be like Greenpeace, or more militant version, where where they're almost like eco-terrorists, that seek to put an end to civilization and keep it from spreading.
Yeah, and you also are going to always have your things like your nature oriented sort of religious groups that they could be a part of as well. Or like you could have like that, just like certain, you know, like say a religious group goes on pilgrimage, and there like could be rangers that contract out, or maybe they are members of the church or whatever. So you could have a ranger who's a you know, like a disciple of a deity that isn't even that nature based. But he just happens to have this skill set and his attunement, like between his god and nature, like that's how he gets these spells. So like he's that sort of like journeyman that sees the pilgrims through to where their holy land is.
Well, yeah, most religions are going to draw followers from diverse backgrounds. It's always possible. The other thing to look at too is the archetypes, and they're going to say something very specific about the type of person you are. Like if you're a beastmaster, you know, you are definitely bonded more deeply with nature than, say, the hunter, where the hunter might be more of, you know, the sniper or the scout, or, you know, more
well,
militant.
your relationship to nature is different, is maybe kind of, so like the hunter, it's a predator-prey sort of thing. With the beastmaster, it's pack. It's part of your pack or whatever.
Right.
Like your family with animals versus like, oh, well, I mean, you know, sometimes nature gets the better of you, sometimes it gets the better of me, like, you know, hunter and prey.
And you might say that the hunter is someone who would be willing to spend more time in town, whereas the beastmaster is someone is might not be more uncomfortable, but would be more comfortable in nature.
Well, and again, like, so we could kind of reskin this here, and like, say you make a beastmaster with the entertainer background, like he's just a really good animal trainer, he or she, and like is in the court of a noble or whatever. Like to come up with like reskins of like, well, I mean, yes, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
You know, like this guy that like he works for like a circus or something, essentially. Yeah.
But I think no matter how you spin it,
Yeah.
that person probably prefers the company of animals over people.
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
You know, and or maybe even takes on some of the traits of his beast companion because they spend so much time together.
Right.
You know, and no matter what that is, if it's a wolf, maybe he exhibits some of those traits and physical characteristics. If it's a panther, the same.
I mean,
thing.
a good person to like check out if you wanted to like do like an eccentric thing. You could look at Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer. You could totally make a Beastmaster Ranger completely based off of him. Like maybe it's wolves as opposed to dogs, but like just like another way to think of it is like not a gruff, stern character, but sort of like kind of flamboyant, like sort of character, and like very super warm, like where you can make something that just feels different than most people might think of it as a ranger.
Now, we were talking about off camera about ranger archetypes, and you bring up something that makes me think of, and I just recently seen a new trailer for the new Tarzan movie. I think Tarzan, like, you could argue maybe he's a barbarian, but I think he's probably more rangery than barbarian, like, because he does bond with animals, especially in this edition more so than
we can call him multi-classed. I mean,
well, yeah, absolutely. He could be multi-classed, but Tarzan would be an example. And I brought up Hank, but everybody laughed at me for bringing up Hank, and they didn't know who he was. I'm like, you guys know who this guy is? Well, Ryan might not. He's like kind of young, but
blank stares. It was just crickets and blank stares.
The old D&D cartoon, the horribly done, where the dungeon master was literally a character that was there.
You should always put a dungeon master avatar character in your game. You're running your game wrong if you do not do that. Yeah, absolutely.
And he should definitely be bald on top of long
That's
hair.
it. There's going to be a little short, gnomish looking thing in red robes, and that's partly bald. That's going to be in the game tonight,
and not be very helpful.
Yeah, be kind of a dick, really. Actually.
Yeah. So we brought up him, and then there was, from Baldur's Gate, there's Mince and Boo.
Mince and Boo. Yeah. Oh, favorite character.
Go for the eyes, Boo! Go for the eyes, rock! And like, so there's a character that like a fun character because he's like slightly touched in the head, but like wholeheartedly endorses butt kicking and swords. Like he's a really fun
and firmly believes in the quality of hamsters.
Yeah,
indeed. Yeah.
Of course,
there's so much fun with the hamster, man. Like when you click it, like he eyes you because you can't take it out of his inventory. Like it was in the slot where you'd put potions and you could not remove the hamster.
But it could squeak. It would squeak if you clicked it.
And Minsk would eye you if you tried to remove the hamster. You could not remove it.
Magic is nice, but now Minsk leads swords for everyone.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Too many memories.
Yeah.
And then then there's probably the two most famous rangers of all.
There's a drow elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just not even mention him. Might have fought with 2 swords and had a panther,
but don't mention him.
don't name him. No.
He shall be unnamed.
He
So,
was
but the
unnamed.
question is, do you think he is more well known and popular at this point than Aragorn
No.
Strider?
No, not a chance.
Yeah,
Because only deep culture nerds know who Drizzt is. Well, shit, I said his name. So only people that have actually read an R.A. Salvatore book or whatever. Whereas with Lord of the Rings, it's so pervasive in culture that people could still be assigned it to read. In high school and middle school.
I don't think that happens.
No.
No.
I know. I read,
but they've all seen the movie. But I'm thinking they saw the movie.
Yeah, there was video games. There's a movie.
Yeah.
I feel that if you're into the fantasy culture, i.e., you play D&D, you're gonna have seen Lord of the Rings. Not. There's no guarantee that you're gonna have read R.A.'s books.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
So.
I don't know, but with all the Drizzt clones that show up in games,
I'm smitzt. Do bourbon. Yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is. I still think that your foremost most popular ranger is going to be Aragorn.
Is going to be Aragorn.
Yeah. Who's the ranger among
That's
rangers.
good. We don't need the one who shall not be named. That was named,
Oh, no.
overtaking him anyway.
Yeah. That's
So, you guys, how do you play your rangers in your game? What is your favorite version of the rangers? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out funny memes on Facebook.
You can also find us now on Snapchat.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.
Not person, but what kind of, not character, but person would actually become a ranger? Take up that profession,
Spending so much alone time and this and that, kind of maybe being curmudgeonly towards society and wanting to not be very engaged with it. Writer, aka Aragorn version. I could see a ranger being a huntsman who's maybe has a noble background, and he just enjoys the thrill of the hunt and is very well accustomed. He goes on hunting trips. So be sure to check out the Nerdarchy, the newsletter, where you can get gaming tips and also learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So, with that, today we want to talk about the ranger and what kind of character.
Possibly.
The ranger is the person who sits on the fringe. They go back and forth, spending time in the wilds, in nature, as well as in the actual town itself.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to be the prototypical
Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with these nerds.
I'm Ted.
Nerdarchist Ryan.
And today we're going to do another What Does Your Class Say About You? And we'll be talking about the ranger.